So as I'm saying in the beginning of this presentation, we should know some statistical tools to understand or interpret the DOI results so that we will see in the layman language. So what are those tools, sir? One is null and alternate hypothesis, p-value, f-test, ANOVA, analysis of variance, and half normality plots or normality and probabilities. So definitely we know that we have seen these technologies maybe in the schooling level or plus 2 level, but we may have forgotten or sometimes we may have not studied this because we didn't understand. So I'll tell you an easy way to remember or to understand this concept. Okay. Let us take a population of swans, which is there here. There are white swans are there are black swans also there. So take some time and find out how many white swans are there and how many black swans are there. Out of 100, I'm saying the total population is 100. Okay. So simple calculation is you minus the black swans, you will get the white swans count. So black swans are 6. White swans are 94. So somebody ask a question to you. Can you say which one is major population here and the major population is significantly major? That means somebody asking by seeing a layman, layman kind of perception, you can say, one can easily tell, say white swans are more number than that of black swans. Their majority population than black swans. Now everything we cannot say, general perspective. We need some tools to represent. For suppose, let us say water viscosity you take it and alcohol viscosity you take it. Both are nearby, one. Like let's say water viscosity is 1 centipercent, alcohol viscosity is somewhere around 0.8 to 0.9. So you can easily say, both viscosity is same. Why you are using a measuring or by means of some specific units or tools you are saying? Because everything having some discriminate kind of differentiation. That means you cannot tell everything is like equal. We need some tool. As a layman, water viscosity and alcohol viscosity is same. But statistically or some kind of tools, it can discriminate between this having a 0.1 difference, 0.2 difference. Like that. Similarly, as a layman perception, one can able to say white swans population is more or dominating than black swans. But as per the null hypothesis, okay, one can able to say that there is no difference between the number of white swans and black swans. All swans are equal. Okay, so how can you can ask a question, sir? How sir you can be able to say that 94 population of white is there and 6 population of black is there? We can easily see here, right? That white population is more, and we are saying as per null hypothesis, there is no difference between them. All population are equal. So when you can say when the white population is more than the black population. I'll tell an example why you are saying this population is not significant than that of black. There are an interaction between two students. Student 1 speaking to another student. They're discussing about their examination. Tomorrow they have an examination on some subject. What happens is, so this person is speaking to, is interacting, just how you're interacting in the hostels or outside of our friends. He's asking, this person is asking to him, are you prepared for the tomorrow's examination? He said, no, I am going to prepare today night. Okay, one day night he's going to prepare for the entire subject. Now he's asking, are you confident that today's preparation is enough to pass the tomorrow's exam? He's asking, are you confident? Are you you can able to say strongly that one day night batting of your syllabus is enough to pass tomorrow's exam? If this person replies back with the confidence of 95% and above, that's why most of the time we'll ask somebody a question, I'll say 99% I'm sure, 100% I'm sure, something like that. So if the percentage 95% and above, yes, definitely he will pass. If his confidence is above 95 or 95 and above, one can able to say that yes, 100% he will pass. But if his confidence levels is 95 and below, there are chances he may fail. So the same principle they're applying here. If you want to say that two populations are different with each other, like in let us say it is 51 or 14 also, we cannot say it is a significant difference. There is some statistical to a statistical point here required to say that significant population. The statistical point is nothing but here 95 on or above. Since here the population one is 94 of white, we cannot say statistically they are a significant population than that of white. If this population is 95, you can see the next image. Here whites are 95 and the blacks are 5. Now what we do is, you can reject the null hypothesis. Why you reject null hypothesis? Null hypothesis, there is no difference. Now you can say difference is there. By rejecting null hypothesis and saying alternate hypothesis. Alternate hypothesis says, if the difference is 95 and above between any two population, the population is significant than other. So why we are saying this terminology here is, let us say magnesium stearate will influence. I'm using the term magnesium stearate. You know all about the magnesium stearate, right? Magnesium stearate will influence lubrication of a tablet. Okay. Now the question is, at what concentration of magnesium stearate will have a significant influence on lubrication? You cannot say I can use 0.5 mg so that little lubrication is there. The lubrication should be significant. It will eject the tablet very easily. Okay. Now let us say 5 mg at 5 mg and above, the lubrication is very effective. We can say now we have 95% confidence that the magnesium concentration, whichever we are taking, will significantly influence the lubrication property. That means whatever we are taking the concentrations or whatever we are taking the excipient, it doesn't have significant influence. But what particular level or what particular concentration it is influencing, one has to be bothered very much. There we are applying this concept of the null hypothesis or alternate hypothesis. And this null and alternate hypothesis are the basics of the rest of the statistics which you are going to see in the further slides. So from this concept of this 95% only, these remaining two concepts are called confidence intervals. This is called confidence intervals, and this is called p-values. So hope both the terminologies are very familiar to you. You might have studied in the lower classes and the UG classes about these confidence intervals and the p-values. Okay, so just I'll throw a glance. We know right now, if you want to say the significance level, we should have 95% and above confidence, or 95 and above. Okay, so this 95 out of 100 is 0.95, and this 5 out of 100 is 0.05. So now you can tell in either ways. If you say 95% and above confidence or p-value less than 0.05. Another way to express is p-value less than 0.05. That means you are indirectly saying less than 5%. If you are saying less than 5% means obviously you are increasing 95%. That means it's 96% or 97%. Right? Either way, right, left side you can say I have 95% confidence, 96% confidence, or 97%, or 99.9% I'm confidence. Or another way you can say by using this p-value. P-value is nothing but the remaining 5%, what you are saying by 100, if you give 0.05, let us say if it is 99% means 1 divided by 100 it is, right? Because 1% only there, no? 1 divided by 100 is 0.01. That means it is still more confident you are. Let us say 99% means, this is the 99% means, only 99.9% means we have only 0.1% or 0.1. So 0.1 divided by 100 is 0.00. That means when you say either p-value 0.001 or when you're saying confidence levels of 99.9%, both are same. Both gives the same meaning, right? If you say p-value more than 0.05 or sorry, less than 0.05, that means you're pushing this side, or you're saying you're pushing the 95% to other side. The both say same. That means magnesium stearate, I can confidently with the 99.9% confident I can say it will influence the lubrication very easily. And it's like less than that is like 95 or 99 or whatever the percentage is. So basically they both can be used, the both ways can be used. Either your left side you can see in percentages, on the right side you can see in the p-value. So based upon this p-value only, that is a probability value only, this all the calculation of ANOVA came. Analysis of variance is basically the tool used to see the significance between the two groups, how much significant they are, just like how you're saying the swans. Between the two groups or within the groups, what is the significance level? I am not going to say much about this ANOVA right now, because when you are seeing the popcorn experiment which is coming, the next slides on this, you will better understand the concept of ANOVA as well as the F value. Does not here the F value, which are both are integrated. That time when you're reading these calculations, that time you'll better understand what is the use of ANOVA. Let us say I've taken two factors, I've taken three factors. Again, in between these factors, I can able to analyze which factor is most significant and influencing the resolution. Either the disintegrant concentration, either the lubricant concentration, which is more significant. Because as per the OFAT principle, all are equal. But as I said before, in the DOE, each influence separately we can able to understand. And this influence we are talking about in terms of statistical tools. 95% is influencing, 96% influencing, or else at p-value of 0. Less than 0.01 it is influencing. At this point also you can able to tell. So basically this ANOVA of two types. One is one-way ANOVA. That means one variable. Here the variable is, let us say, solid state, and the response is dissolution. You know the solid state which you study in the physical pharmaceutics, crystalline, amorphous, and polymers. And we know crystalline drugs have less solubility, as I've seen in this graph, and amorphous drugs have more solubility. Let us say we are taking a paracetamol, which is then crystalline amorphous form. We are saying from this graph, crystalline paracetamol having less dissolution, whereas amorphous paracetamol having more dissolution. But whatever it is one variable. The variable is solid state. But if I have two variables, because our pharmaceutical manufacturing is multivariable. Let us say I want to know what is the effect of granulation technique used and effect of solid state used on the dissolution. So it is like two variables I'm using, but it is a single response only. Now there is a question, if I have more than two variables, so what I can, because graphically I can represent. Anywhere graphically, even I know which we'll be going to see the graphical tools used from the DOE, more than two variables, input variables, you cannot able to interpret in the graphically. So more than two variables, there is no like ANOVA called three-way ANOVA, right? Either we know one-way ANOVA or two-way ANOVA. No, but we know when you're preparing a tablet, you have so many excipients, so many factors, like so many process parameters are there. So that time what we are using the term called multivariable ANOVA or multivariable responses or ANOVA. These multivariable responses are called as DOE. So hope at least you have some kind of idea now on DOE. What is DOE? Is nothing but ANOVA. You are doing ANOVA studies only. You are selecting the factors, you are selecting the ranges and studying what is the influence of each factor on the response, right? So if you are studying more than two factors, since you cannot study through the ANOVA, one way or two ANOVA, you are putting, if you, when you are, I'll tell you, when you are seeing the popcorn experiment, no, very popular, there you can see ANOVA table, so many ANOVA tables will come. That means more than two factors are there. That's why we are using DOE. The software can able to analyze multiple factors and using this ANOVA principle. ANOVA principle is nothing but p-value less than 0.05, that can able to tell which is a significant factor, which is not a significant factor. So that's which I said before also, that which is the integral part of ANOVA. Come to the half normality plots. At a given experiment, let us say 10 factors, you take 8 factors, all factors will not influence on the response. Let us say, consider this is a dissolution response on the y-axis. You have taken many factors like A, B, C, D, and their interactions like A, B, B, C, C, D, A, B, C, or whatever. N number of factors, but what are the factors which is falling outside this line are called as significant factors. In DOE, the term significance will come in many times. Significance means it is influencing. Magnesium stearate is influencing only the lubrication. Cross-carbonyl sodium is influencing mainly the disintegration. That is a significant factor. When you take left side on the y-axis as a disintegration, that is very important. But if you take here dissolution, this factor will be comes to this line. This line is nothing but the factors which not influencing this response. So basically, half-normality plot will separate in a given set of factors or independent variables, which is significant, which is not significant. They are going to be able to separate. Please remember one principle which I will say to many of the people: DY will never give an ideal formula. What is the ideal formula you have seen in albendazole example? D5 is an ideal formula. Why? Because 89% is releasing. But DOI will never say an ideal formula. It will give a design space, which you will see in the counter overlay plot. Design space means it will say in a particular space if you work, your product is okay. Let us say resolution is not less than 85% I want. Okay, in 5 minutes. That means within this design space, you will get resolution 85 and above. It's like somewhere it's like here 85, 86, 89, 84. Within the design space, you can work. It will tell you, because it will first ask the user, what is your target or what is your optimization response you want. If you say 85% I want, it will say anywhere you can work, at least 85% will get 86, 87, 88 later. But it is not the case with the OFAT experiments. OFAT experiments is like single value, one ideal value, 89% only you can get it, right? Let us say the albendazole example which you seen before, what teacher asked, you prepare a tablet with maximum resolution. But if the same teacher asked you prepare a tablet and bring it to me which is having exactly 85%, is it possible for a student to prepare? Because he's doing a trial and error and seeing where is you are getting a maximum response. But if you use DOE, you can able to bring back that product, because within the design space, you can know where he is getting exactly 85, 86, or 87, because now your factors and responses are interlinked. If you are changing the factors, the responses will change. You can able to identify easily at what concentration of the factor I can get the response very easily. Anyway, whatever you are saying here, now it will take to understand better. You want to see the examples only. Then only you can able to understand, because understanding theoretical is like half. The remaining half you'll better understand when you do some kind of practical, which is going to come into the next few. After the finishing of this presentation completely through understanding DOE, we are doing a practical of half an experiments. So move on to the different terminologies used in the DOA, and we should be also very cautious, while using this terminology, because you'll be confused. Like in one article or one textbook, you can see they will use input variable. Another article they will use CMS, CPPs like that. So I will give a clear-cut idea of where we can use what kind of terminologies you can use. First, you remember when you are preparing something, there are two things involved. One is the excipients. Okay. Another one is the process parameters. I'll tell excipients like it may be magnesium stearate, calcium carbonate, starch, or whatever. Process parameters like granulation you're using. Granulation time, granulation speed, mixing time, mixing speed, punching strength, or many things. Like these are called factors. But until now, factors means the student perception is only the chemicals and its ranges. No. Whatever you're using as input variable, it is influencing your final tablet. It may be the dissolution, disintegration, dissolution. Because if you punch the tablet so hard, it is not going to disintegrate fast. It is not going to dissolve fast. So obviously, your process parameters influencing the tablet, right? Its performance. So both the excipient concentration and the ranges and the process parameters also can be considered as the factors, the input factors. In QBD terms, we'll call this CMS, which is related to the critical material attributes. Critical process parameters, which influence in the process, are called critical process parameters. Okay. So basically, input variables are nothing but these are the input variables that can be changed. That means you can change their range, minus level, plus level, high level, low level. Usually, excipients and their concentrations will cause this, input variables, and sometimes they may interact or may not interact. It depends on the factor to factors. These are also called as factors. That is very important. We know input variable. Now we can also call them as factor cause, because it is causing something. What is the cause? Magnesium stearate causes lubrication, some response. Cross-carbonyl sodium causes super disintegration. It is causing something. That's what these are called. They are also called as independent factors. Means we are assuming that each factor will not depend with each other, will not interact with each other. They are not dependent. They are doing their own work and they are proceeding. So input variables are also called as factors, causes. They are independent variables. Whereas output variables are also called as the results or the responses. Disintegration, dissolution, friable, whatever you call the responses. And basically, they're depending on the input variables. Disintegration depend upon the super disintegrant, that may be cross-carbonyl sodium. And disintegration once again depend upon the binary concentration. So they're depending with the independent variables. We are calling as dependent variables. These are also called as dependent variables because they're depending on the input variables. Also called as effects. We are calling as cause. Here we are calling as effect. Okay. They're calling as factor, we are calling as response. So like this, like so much confusion will be there, but you have to be thorough with the terminologies, because one presentation if we take, or one book if we take, one article if we take, there are so many terminologies they'll use, you totally end up with a mess up. What is the correct thing there? Because until unless you are not digested with the the terminologies used, you cannot able to understand the results which are they're giving it. Okay, that's very important. Please try to try to digest it. And these are also called as critical fault attributes. If you could recall back the concept of QBD, the responses are called as critical fault attributes. And the levels. So levels means least concentration, highest concentration. So as you see in the albedogal example, there is no meaning of why they taken 2 or 3. But DO is not like that. You have to fix now. Let us say magnesium stearate, I will use least as 2 mg, highest as 4 mg. I will not cross beyond this. I will not use beyond this. So this we used to call as minus level. The highest concentration which you are taking is called as plus level. This is very important. Please try to understand and remember. Whatever it is, because in further slides we are going to see this one about minus and plus many times it will come. Minus is the least value of any excipient you are using, including a process parameter. Let us say 50 RPM is the least value. 100 RPM is the highest value. Okay, that you have to be very familiar. Least whatever value you are using is a minus value, highest you are using as a plus value. And center points is the mid value which you are using, usually represented with the symbol 0. 2 to 4, the center value is 3, right? Usually we used to think this is ideal region, no? Anywhere when you take it, we'll take all center values because it will get optimum value. So center points is the center value of all factor ranges. Here the range is 2 to 4, the center value is 3. Let us say we are taking 50 to 100, the center value is 75. So the center point of any two factor ranges is called as center values. And axial points or star points are the some kind of extra features which you are going to see in the central composite design. That time I will explain you brief about this alpha points. Okay, let us not forget about it. This is also like a level. How you are saying minus and plus and 0. Alpha is another coded value which you are going to see. The uncontrolled factors are variables which induce variation under normal operational conditions such as noise factors. Like you can see here the factors like emissions, shifts, raw materials, humidity, etc. that you cannot able to control, because let us say when you are doing an engineering experiment and you are designing a machine, it will produce some heat, because all machines cannot be possible to kept in like room temperature 25 degrees, like the engines of automobiles or engines of some other machines, it will produce the heat. So these are called as uncontrollable factors. You cannot able to control them. Usually in pharmacy sector is concerned, these uncontrollable factors are very less. That will not be there much in the our sector it is. So identification. So when you're using the term DOE, there's nothing but some experiment. Whatever the experiment or whatever the experiment, you take a factorial design, you take CCDR, you take box Penkin design, there is a common way of representing this. That way is called this. We'll be having on denominator and you're having one numerator. This one, 2 to the power of 3. This down value indicates how many levels you're using for each factor. It is the level of factors. And 3 is like unlimited. See, this 2 is basically, otherwise sometimes it becomes 3, not more than that. Because we are using minus and plus, sometimes you're using 0 level also 3. But 3 is like infinity. We don't know how many factors is. Let us say you're taking 10 excipients means 2 to the power of 10. So how many experiments will come, you think about it. It is based upon number of factors. This is the levels of factors. Let us say 2 to the power 2, that I have 2 levels. I have 2 factors. Let us say magnesium stearate and cross-corner sodium. How many experiments I will get? 4 experiments. Minus and plus, and I have 2 factors. Total I'll get 4 experiments. So that's that determines how many experiments we are going to get it. Once again, I'm saying, please don't bother about this now. Right now, when you're talking about the models, you'll understand this number of experiments, what is minus and plus level and all those things. Right now, only thing you remember is this denominator indicates the number of levels each factor you have taken in the experiment. This value indicates the total number of experiments. That you please don't forget. And you see that if you know next experiment, the next models will understand better about this. Then other the terminology which you use like an interaction. Just I'm saying like one factor will interact with another factor, and it is not necessary to happen. Sometimes it may happen. And replications. Sometimes like if you take the complicated designs like box Penkin and central composite design, each run they'll duplicate it. Like if you take box Penkin, like it's like 6 times and central composite is like 5 times. To see the error, sometimes we'll do n is equal to 3 or n is equal to 6, because to see whether you are getting the same response when you do the experiment again and again. So that is called replication. To find out the error, to calculate the error, we are going to do this. And randomization is when you start using the software, you can able to see the experiments will not come in an order like 1 to 8 or 1 to 5. It will randomize in between to avoid the error. Let us say 8 experiments DOE gave, but all 8 experiments are not going to do today. Some experiments are going to do today, some experiments are going to do tomorrow. Today it is very hot climate, maybe tomorrow is raining, so the temperature fluctuates. So in order to avoid this kind of ambiguity, let us say we have like people getting tired or machine warm up, there are many factors which will influence the experimental conditions. Because when the tablet you prepare today, it will get different resolution. Tomorrow it may get different resolution. In order to do that, in order to avoid that, ambiguity, randomization will be there. That means the experiments what you are doing is not as per the order. It will be randomized by the software and it will be randomly experiments. That means, when I'm talking about the factorial reasons, I'll tell you what is the randomization is exactly. Like it will not start from like equally like 1, 2, 3, 4. The software itself will randomize the experiments and we have to do as per that. And blocking, it's very rare. We are going to see that the blocking and all comes in the fraction factorial design. And this is one graphical representation one can able to understand between interaction and non-interaction. Let us say this y is the response, and I have two factors. The coffee is a factor here, and the tea is another factor. So when you're increasing their concentration to minus and to plus, what happens? You can see the response also gradually increases. That means they're doing the job. But in another case, one factor you are increasing, it is increasing the response. In the some other factor, when you're increasing, it is decreasing the response. You can see here at highest level, it is reducing the least response. That means both factors are intersecting at one point of time. This is called as interaction. They're interacting with each other. That means there is some problem happening, and we have to be able to find out what is the interaction here. So there is a graphical way of representing that. And I'm not going to talk QBD anything much about here because you are coming to this presentation after seeing the QBD presentation. I kept the slide here. If you could able to remember the 6 elements or the 5 elements of QBD, that one element called as design space, right? But there we talk about very less about design space, but design space itself is a very big area to explore. If in order to create a design space between the excipients and the process parameters with respect to the responses, you need a statistical tool like design of experiments, developing a design space. Whatever the DOI we are discussing today on this topic is to mainly to develop a design space where you can work for the product. So if you're working in within the design space, consider as ideal, and you will not have any failures. So you also know that you can able to work as a single DOE for the entire product, like drying is separate DOE, granulation you can work as separate DOE, because there are many factors in the granulation, like this the speed, patterns, water temperature, whatever the things are there. Otherwise, you can make a multiple device, but it's like complex. Many experiments will come. So there is no agency like FDR says no, you have to use a single DOI to finish it up. You can use a multiple DOI as you can use single DOI to can able to prepare the results. So if you could recall back the concept of QBD, we are using the terms like critical meter attributes, critical process parameters. Together, it will cause the critical call attributes. Let us say you have taken the binder concentration, disintegral concentration, and you have taken the tablet punching speed, compression force, drying rate. This together will lead to the quality of the product resolution. So if you want more resolution or less resolution, you have to keep changing the concentrations of this and you keep changing the parameters of this so that you will get the response. So in QBD terms, you are using like instead of materials or process, you are using like material attributes, process parameters, and quality attributes, nothing but responses. These are all together will influence the final, the safety efficacy of the any product.